Welcome, brothers and sisters. My name is Eros and I am the Soul Maker. Today we will continue our journey into spellwork, especially on the matter of candle magic. And today's lesson will be extremely important for our practice. We will learn how to prepare and plan spells to influence our reality, ourselves, or even others. But we need to have developed a few skills to actually cast spells and make them work. These skills are meditation, sigil magic. Here I am including the ability to write, craft declarations of intent, and a basic understanding of elemental and planetary correspondences and symbologies. So, the series we've made in this channel until this point. So, if you are following the channel, you know what skills I am talking about. When you have an understanding of what these skills are and how to perform them, then we can move on. In spellwork, as we said before, we are building a microstructure, something representative, correspondent to something greater, and we are going to imbue, to charge this structure with our desire through our will to have our desire manifested. There are many ways to build these type of microstructures for spellwork, but today we will learn the candle magic technique, which is easily translatable in all the other methods. It's fairly easy to use and to understand, quite cheap to apply. I know that some of you have access to fancy and expensive equipment, but unfortunately this is not always the case, and I need and want the magic of our magical school to be accessible to anyone who may really need it. And candle magic is also extremely effective. So let's begin with our usual step-by-step approach to keep everything as simple and clear as possible. Step number 1. As in most magic, the first thing we need to do is to craft a declaration of intent, like we've learned to do before in sigil magic. So we are going to ask ourselves what we want to manifest, and then we are going to write it down without any sort of negation and in the present tense. Using the candle magic technique, we can influence external situation and even others. So we need to be a little careful about what we ask and how we ask it. First of all, because magic tends to manifest in the easiest and most direct way possible. So, for example, if you ask for a certain guy or a certain girl to be obsessed with you, be aware and beware that their obsession might, forgive me, not necessarily be positive. And also, while we are writing our declaration of intent, we should remember that we are allowed to exclude unwanted consequences and results. For example, we are allowed, while casting for money to say at the end of our declaration of intent while we are preparing, without hurting me or my loved ones, to avoid having the money we are casting for example, from a parent that is passing away. Step number 2. In the second step, we need to plan our operation. We want to build our structure considering what we want to manifest, building up our correspondences. In this step, we are going to look at our declaration of intent and identify the planets or elements that are related to what we want to manifest. This process is more an art than a science. There is no planet or element that is absolutely correct for a certain operation, and there is no exact number of correspondences we must use to make our spell effective. But we can use our logic to maximize our performances. For example, for my number of correspondences, I will use a minimum of 2 correspondences and a maximum of 4 correspondences, usually 3. We want to do this because fewer correspondences might result too generic in our working and produce unpredictable results. On the other hand, using too many correspondences might make our spell too specific, making it extremely difficult to manifest, or even stopping it in the beginning. Generally speaking, our first correspondence, the first correspondence we are going to pick, will be the core, the heart of our operation. The second one will be the way we want to apply the power of our spell. And the third correspondence we will pick will contain specific information about what we want to manifest. Usually the third correspondence is a sigil crafted with our declaration of intent. Forgive me. Now, let's make a few examples to make this step completely clear. If I wanted to cast for a new job for my first correspondence, I could pick Jupiter, the planet of abundance and prosperity. My second correspondence could be Venus, that is the planet of love, but also of new beginnings, which is perfect to indicate how we want this spell to manifest. And the third correspondence, of course, will be my declaration of intent. In this case, for example, my declaration could be, I have a new job that I love. Second example, let's say I wanted to cast for protection. I can choose, again, Jupiter as my main correspondence, as my main planet, and go straight to my declaration of intent using only 2 correspondences. My declaration of intent in this instance will simply be I am protected. But I could use Jupiter as the main planet and as the main correspondence, and Earth as a second correspondence, plus my declaration of intent, that in this case could be, to keep the theme, entwining the element and the planet, my declaration of intent could be, I am shielded from danger, or I am protected from danger. Or, for example, I could again pick Jupiter for the essence of protection and using Mercury as my second correspondence. Mercury is the planet, as we know, that rules over communication and travel. In this case, my declaration of intent could be I am protected from gossip communication, or I am protected in my travels or during my travels, depending on what I need from my spell in the specific situation. I hope these examples were clear, but remember, we are still planning our operation. We crafted our declaration of intent depending on what we need. We've chosen our main correspondence, the planet or element indicating what we want. Our secondary correspondence, if necessary, the planet or element indicating how we want our desire to manifest or in what field, and possibly our third correspondence, usually our declaration of intent, to be as specific as possible without blocking the spell. Now, forgive me if I repeat myself. I want this technique to be as clear as possible to you. Now, we need to acquire what we need to actually cast the spell. Don't worry, we will not use impossible things to find. We will need a candle, preferably of the color of our main correspondence, either an element or a planet. If we can find it, we can use a white candle. Of course, it will not be as powerful, but usually can do the trick. But remember that nowadays it's fairly easy to acquire colored candles, either online or in many kinds of shops. But usually we don't want to use scented candles because they may add a correspondence we don't want or we don't need in our spells involuntarily. I will usually go for a medium candle, but for longer or very important operations, you may want to use bigger candles or votive candles. Then we will need to acquire an oil. Possibly, in many occasions, we will need to use a magical oil, corresponding to what we are casting for. A money oil for prosperity, a love oil to find love, a war oil to strike our enemies, and so on. It's possible to buy these enchanted oils online if you want to make sure. If you want to be sure of the quality of what you're buying, you want to always buy them from a practitioner of the magical art that you really trust. But I will usually never buy oils. I will prepare them for myself. And if you keep following these lessons, you will soon know how to prepare your magical oils yourself. But for the time being, we will use a carrier oil, a base oil. And to be honest, I tend to almost always use base oils, at least more often than not. Even though, of course, I can prepare specific magical oils. But I will usually go for a base oil in part because I am allowed this way to build more specific spells for any occasion. And on the other side, because I want to honor the ways of my ancestors. So for the time being, we are going to use a base oils. Usually seed oil or olive oil, even better. But there are different carrier oils if you want to experiment, just like jojoba oil, coconut oil, almond oil, and many more. But for the time being, I will stick, if I were you, to seed or even better, olive oil. Then we need to acquire herbs related to our correspondences. Generally, we want to pick and choose from the herbs you have experience with. But to begin, we can pick 2 or 3 herbs from the list of correspondences we've seen on the previous videos. We are going to use what we have at hand, what we have access to, and or what our intuition suggests us to use, while also learning in the meantime which are the herbs that are working better for us in specific situations. But the herbs we have listed in the previous videos are multi-purpose and very traditional. So as long as you stick to the list, you won't have any problems. Then the last thing we need to do is to craft a sigil with our declaration of intent, just like we've learned in the sigil magic lessons, without the need to forget or activate it, just preparing the sigil. Step number 3. The last thing we need to do in our preparation is to select the right time to actually cast our spells. If we can, we want to usually work in the day related to our main correspondence, or first correspondence, as you prefer, if it is a planet. If we are working with the elements, we can work whenever we want, since elements are more related to seasons. And of course, we are not going to wait for seasons to pass if we need a spell. Then, let's assume we are working with planets. If we can, we want to use the planetary day, the correspondent one, and we may even want to use the planetary hour of our second correspondence, if the second correspondence is also a planet, of course. Working with planetary hours is not mandatory, but if we decide to do so, we can work with the day of our main planet, our first correspondence, and in the hour of our second planet, our second correspondence, or vice versa. We can work in the day of our second planet and in the hour of our first correspondence, our first planet. For example, if we need to work with the sun and the moon, if we want to have perfect timing for our spell, we can work in Sunday in the hour of the moon, or on Monday in the hour of the sun. How do we calculate planetary hours? In this day and age, we usually use calculators online or applications. They are free and very precise. For good measure, you may want to check 2 different calculators and pick a timing in the middle if they are a little different, until, of course, you find a calculator you feel you can trust. If you want to do it the old way, if you want to get old school about calculating planetary hours, it will be much harder. But if you are interested, please let me know I will be glad to prepare a video with an explanation on how to do so, because this one will already be too long and complex. The only other timing we may want to consider while timing our spell in this phase is lunar phases. The lunar phases are very easy to understand. Are the phases on the moon on a lunar cycle. So we will have the waning moon, perfect to banish and push away things, people, or situations that we don't want in our life. This phase will allow to push them all away from us, from ourselves. Then we have the waxing moon, perfect to attract things, people, or situation we want in our life. Then, of course, we find the new moon, which is extremely important for new beginnings, for darker and obscure operation, or operation that we want or need to remain hidden. Then, of course, there's the full moon, the moment of maximum power in the lunar cycle, which is the reason why we get so hyped when the full moon approaches. The full moon is perfect for any sort of operation. It's the moment of maximum power. We are not forced to consider the lunar phases for our spells, but doing so will make our spells even more powerful, building up correspondences. Now, this has been a long video. Preparing for the next one, we want to try to plan our operation, to plan our spells, even just as an exercise, while we prepare for the next lesson, in which we will learn to charge and cast our spells. As always, I deeply thank you for your kind attention, and may eternal lights shine upon you.